Hello and welcome everybody to Around the Battleground. We are still in the off season, so regular content is kind of being delayed. So we're just doing the interviews now. So I guess I should introduce myself. Still, my name is LHS. I am your host, and today we've got an extra special guest. We've got the coach of Dignitas, formerly Dignitas at this point. I don't know how to address that with all the roster stuff. We've got Biggy here. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. Just I don't know. It's the off season's nice, but you always miss it. So
Yeah,
kind of enjoying my time off, but also keen to get going again.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, like there was just so much stuff leading up to Worlds, and then Worlds hit, and then it's been like a drop, and it's just like, oh man, I miss it. I want to be back. I want to be like watching games and like watching stuff and be like, even like because like uh AVGL college stuff like in ACE, like we were going full tilt, and then after Worlds hit, it's been nothing. So it's just like my Smite interaction as far as like the game goes and everything has just gone way down.
I think also because of all the roster changes and like I don't know, a lot of people like against the changes, but for me as like a traditional sports fan, I actually really like it. Like it sucks to lose big names, and I'm probably just saying that because I'm fortunate enough that I can make the move and like commit.
Mhm.
But honestly, and my team was kind of the same this year. We didn't watch that much SPL apart from like we watched the games of the people we played beforehand just to get information. But I didn't enjoy watching SPL honestly. It did feel a bit stale in my opinion. I felt like I was watching most of the results were fairly predictable. NA I just didn't find interesting at all because I felt like besides Splice making a run, it was pretty predictable. And then EU, I guess when you scrim those teams and you see them play all the time, it loses its I don't know, I don't know the word like just it loses
Its
its,
luster,
you
its
lose kind of
appeal. Yeah.
interest. Yeah, its appeal, I guess. But I like the idea of playing on LAN and like seeing the players and cross region rosters and just the potential. I think there's a lot more potential, even if people don't agree it was done at the right time or done correctly.
I think a big thing because like you said, as a traditional sports fan, right? I feel like a lot of people who come into esports with a solid traditional sports background, either as a player or as a fan or whatever, their view of esports is like just really fundamentally different from people who don't have that. So like I'm right there in the same
Yeah,
boat where like I see the changes that are being made. I'm like, I like them. I like the ideas behind them, like a centralized you know league where everybody you can kind of cross play, like the best players can now be all on one team if they wanted to be, right? Whereas before,
yeah.
you know, they were limited to NA
Well,
or EU. So that's really kind of cool.
maybe.
And then I don't know, these I've heard some of the spicy stuff going on behind the scenes with the rosters, and it's crazy, and I can't wait to see. But I feel like you're right. I feel like as far as the SPL, like watching the SPL goes,
Yeah.
this year was really stale. And I think a lot of that, I mean, part of it was just like production and broadcast, right? Like there's only so much they could do. They didn't do a whole lot to innovate. It felt like, I mean, we got consistent like in-game instant replays, which was really cool. But outside of stuff like that, I mean, you got to spice it up every so often. But then like the meta itself was so stagnant and stale, it felt like for a long period in the SPL this year that we're just like, all right, what picks are we gonna see? Oh, it's the
I
same ones.
I think EU's very stagnant in the meta. EU gets likes to kind of narrow down and uh find their top picks, the 3 or 4 top picks in each role and then draft around that. Whereas and it's very different to NA. I think the way they kind of drafted, I'm not sure whether it worked out that way or if Splice did it on purpose, but I feel like the way Splice drafted countered everything we kind of did.
Mhm.
And EU, we kind of just, I know our style was just to pick to our style, and I think some of the other EU teams were like that way as well. But I think also that even though they dropped it down to 2 teams, it still felt the same
Yeah.
because yeah, okay, so you didn't have to watch the 2 weeks where the top 6 beat the bottom 2. You just took those 2 weeks out basically, and it was still pretty much the same, especially in EU, like, I think the first, like, SK and Mouse kind of at the bottom every split, and then the top 3, top 4 was, like, pretty standard, like, Obey, middle of the pack, Energy, Rival, Dig, fighting for, like, the top. It felt the same, like, in EU.
Yeah, it was weird because we did drop, we dropped what like the old burrito gang guys, and then we dropped poppies, and it was like, okay, we're dropping these guys, so this should like increase everything. Like Fumball and the boys, like they had a decent run at times. They were always a traditionally strong team, and then this year it was like, oh, I guess it really doesn't matter. Like there's always going to be the bottom teams, and sometimes it just doesn't come together. I don't know. It's always weird to see like which teams transitions to being that, and I don't know. It's like no matter what you know Hi-Rez and Smite try to do, it just always works out that there's gonna be a bottom team. There's gonna be a team that struggles to win anything, whether
Yeah. I think
meta
I think
or just
also
team.
yeah, I think also it's got to do with the fact that everyone's so stuck in their ways, like roster-wise. Everyone had their opinion of every player, and like there's like the top echelon of players. Everyone's like, this player's good, this player's good. I would play this player, I wouldn't play this player. But there wasn't a big willingness to mix things up. I think like SK kind of just stuck with their roster, and I think I wouldn't name names, but there was definitely SML players who could have come in and improved that roster like 100% in my opinion. Like if I was coaching that team, I could have made certain changes. I feel like that at least like you had nothing to lose, right? Like I feel like
Right.
it's kind of like the boys club in SPL, and I feel like it's been like that for years, and that's why I like this change because a lot of players are like, okay, and especially with Splice winning worlds, it's kind of like, oh, you don't always have to have like the best players. You have to find the right, you have to mesh properly, and you need to make either if you don't make changes in the way you practice or things like that, then you find different players, and I feel like EU was so stuck in like the players that they picked up. They were so hesitant to try new talent. A lot of like the bottom teams.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying that about EU for a while now, especially just like watching SK. I think SK really epitomized it this year. It was just like you said, the boys club. Like those
Yeah,
guys are gonna play with each other for forever, right? And it's just like how how long is this gonna keep happening? Like I I 100% you believe that there are players in the SML that could, take over a bunch of spots in the SPL right now. I think one of the biggest examples going into season 5 was looking at Burrito's roster. I think they're now Optimus Gang, but Farrakrick, Johnny,
yeah,
Hispana Five, Fuse Five, all those guys, like really talented players. Like they had flashes and moments, and I think any one of them could have made it on a roster. And then I think only one of them out of the entire group ever even got, like, a shot at a tryout, and this might be just hearsay, but, like, it's like, "Oh, we didn't wanna play with him because his English wasn't the greatest." Like,
yeah. That's one thing. That's one thing I've heard about Johnny, especially, and Farrakrick. I'm not sure. I think they're maybe Russian. I'm not sure, but I can't
Mhm.
quite remember. But that's what I've heard. Not excuses, but the things I've heard because I've not watched a lot of Farrakrick. But definitely Johnny is like SPL caliber player. But then again, it's riskier, I guess. And I think also the way the SPL is structured at the moment is it's very player run. There's not a lot of like coaches or if you can or management. If you compare it to like LoL or Counter Strike, the players have an opinion, but they don't make the call. There's not a lot of rosters in Smite that aren't that way. Like I think I personally have a strong control over like the roster that I want, and I'm not sure if like Energy or Rival are the same, but I know that a lot of those teams, it's kind of like, okay, it's like a vote system, you know, it's like, should we replace this player? If three people don't want to, then we don't do it. There's no kind of overseeing body to be like, you know, you've done the same thing for three splits and nothing's changed. Let's make a change, you know? And like, what's the right change? And I think that's what I like about Smite kind of growing in that direction now that you have all these teams and they're cross region, and I kind of hope Smite goes that way so it doesn't get stagnant again.
Yeah, I mean, you've been around, like, watching the show for a while. I mean, and this is a theme that, like, I've always brought up is, like, that next step for Smite esports, like, that next step we need
Yeah,
to take, that maturing process where, like you said, it is very player run oriented right now. And that causes so many problems, whether it's how I mean, you go back to weekend kicking incon, right? Like that, like the way the optics of that worked out. If you have like
yeah,
a team manager who makes that announcement or whatever, it's like, okay, we're moving forward in this direction. It didn't work out. And there's no hard feelings. This is a business decision to get better as a team, right? If you have that, it kind of mitigates. Like the community was at war for like a month and a half because of that one move, right? So it's like really weird. And bringing in more management, like when they went to the franchising model, I was really I really liked that we brought Splice got brought in because Splice is a really professional organization who's got a League of Legends team, everything like that. They know how it operates in the bigger scenes, and I felt like they would bring a lot of that veteran knowledge and like management style to Smite a little bit. And they kind of did. They made some roster changes before the season started. They were very aggressive
yeah.
helping their players out. The team house, like the beach week trip, stuff like that. Uh, and all that stuff was stuff that was needed. And now it feels like these season 6 changes are kind of forcing it further along. Moving everybody to one location. It kind of feels like we're slowly trying to take all of the power away from the players and put it into orgs and things like that. The franchising kind of helps with that, and I feel like
Yeah.
that's a large part of like problems players are having with season 6 transitions just as much as like, oh, we all have to move to one place now when they have to uproot our lives. I think a lot of it is just that losing control and losing power over the scene.
I don't think people like that, and that's fair. And I think the problem with this year was that a lot of orgs just took a paycheck. Like honestly, like there was some trash. Like the way some teams are treated was just like atrocious. I think Mouse especially. Like I heard some rumors about them, like Cherry playing in a Snacks jersey. For me, that's just I don't know. That's just so unprofessional. That really pisses me off to see that kind of thing. And obviously the whole LG situation with not paying players, which is another topic in itself. With them being back, I think the orgs have to step up as well and then take that control, and then in return, the whole level of professionalism will step up because I think there is a lack of professionalism still in the pro scene, especially behind the scenes when it comes to like practice ethic and whatnot. And I feel like the only way for that to improve is it's kind of semi on the players, but it's also on the orgs.
Yeah, I think that is another thing. So we can focus on the players, like, and then there is stuff to talk, like, speak to in that. But another big portion is getting orgs, like quality organizations to come in and advance the scene, right? Um, I just like last week the interview we had was with Julian from Obey, and I hands down believe that Obey's interest to Smite furthered the scene. They made the scene better. As an org, they
Yeah,
influenced everybody. The positivity that org kind of portrayed, the roster they picked up, everything that they did kind of just it made everything a little bit more legitimate. Going in from like season 3 worlds into season 4, all the stuff they kind of did. NRG at the same time also kind of
yeah,
solidified that. Like they're gone now, but their legacy will always be. It felt like season 3 was like Smite was kind of in the downturn. It really wasn't growing as much as everyone thought, and then Worlds happened, and like that is even though Obey was such a young org, they're very tied into that event and how Smite kind of grew over the past year and NRG with
I mean,
that. So
yeah, they just cared. I mean, that's all it takes. Like, you have
yeah,
to give a shit if you want to, like, if you're gonna come in as an org, like, you just have to give a shit. It's as simple as that, and you have to put in the effort. And like, I'm not like I agree. Like, content is good, but I'm not a content person myself, so I I'm much more involved. Like, when I came in with Dig, I think I was fairly new the first split or so, but after a few splits, I think the Dig management saw how seriously I took my job and kind of the expectations I had of my players to be professional, like in and out of the game. And they said to me, they gave me a lot of control. I have a lot of standing with them, but it's kind of mutual. Like, we step up as like players and coaches, and we're rewarded from them, and we have expectations of each other. And I think it's a good kind of mesh overall for us at least. And I feel like more orgs need that. Like, I know there's a lot of orgs where like there's just no interaction between the players and the org. Besides them telling them their results and tweeting their results,
right.
there's no relationship, like personal or business relationship there.
Yeah. I mean, Dig is just one of those orgs. I mean, Dig's been here just about the whole time and has been really committed to the scene. I mean,
Yeah,
the content you guys are always pumping out, you're very invested. Um, you guys got Cincy on lock, and he just does amazing content for you guys. It's been fun to watch all the stuff he does with you guys. And it's weird. It's kind of weird seeing that out of like the EU side, right? I feel like a lot of the content and like the approachability for orgs has come from the EU side a lot of the time. You've got Obey doing it. You had Dig doing it. You've got um Rival was doing it, and it's a little weird. Like a lot of it is on the EU side of things, where I think you guys are a little bit hungrier to be like, we really care about esports and we really care about everything. We kind of want to push that
yeah,
professionalism forward and kind of keep everything growing in the right direction. Whereas I feel like a lot of the a lot of the horror stories we hear about like have to do with NA teams, right? LG's not paying players, and like that's not a new thing, right? Like this has been LG has
yeah,
been kind of a crappy org since Jeff and Barrow were on the team. But Jeff and Barrow were professionals and didn't air their dirty laundry, right? I mean, that's why as
yeah,
soon as Jeff and Barrow could get out of LG to go to SSG, they did. Like that all makes sense. And we got the announcement today. LG is back in the SPL. It's back in Spite, and that just blows my mind. Whereas Hi-Rez
yeah,
is trying to clean up the scene, make it a better place, bring in quality orgs. And then you've got all this controversy surrounding LG, like this quantifiable like shittiness that they keep doing, and we're bringing them back in. It's like
yeah.
it's counterproductive to like their messaging. Like we care about the players, we want to give them a safe space, we want to help them and grow them, but also here's a shitty org for you guys to work for. It's just weird.
I think it definitely sucks. I don't know anything about the LG stuff, so like other than what's been on Twitter, so I'm not really gonna comment too much. But it's really sad to lose good orgs like Energy and Obey. But at the same time, I feel like maybe just people just have to suck it up this year. And I get that's easy for me to say because I'm in a good position with Dig. But I feel like people need to suck it up. But also, just if anything happens, it needs to be like uh dealt with, with by Hi-Rez immediately, and hopefully uh the kind of this kind of structure in like the at the end of the year it works out and everyone's kind of the whole level of professionalism rises, and then maybe you see those a few big orgs like come back in. It's kind of my opinion, but yeah, at the same time, I would be very cautious if I was trying to build a team and I had to sign, if that was my only option. But I mean, surely it can't happen again,
Surely it can't happen again.
uh,
Those are words to right before the fall. Ah, surely things will be different this time.
I mean, if you, I don't know.
God,
It's
if
hard
I
for
was a
me.
bad person, I would segue that to your guys' worlds, but I'm not a bad person who's gonna make a joke about
I
your
mean, that's
guys'.
fine. Like, I mean, we made worlds this year at least, but
Yeah, that is
I,
an improvement. That is a marked improvement from last year.
no.
So, all right, so we've kind of talked enough, I think, about like season 6 and the future of Smite and everything. Let's kind of dial it back. Let's talk about the past. How long have you been a coach at this point?
Uh, I think I played my first competitive year. I played on Avant Garde with Ro and a cheetah on my team
Mhm.
when we went to Worlds, and then Worlds kind of like I lost a lot of confidence in myself playing at Worlds. Like I don't know, I was always a nervous player. I always got a lot of nerves before playing. Like I could never get rid of. Like when I got into the game, I was kind of fine, but like I would get nervous before like even before scrims. Like I don't know. It was just a weird thing about me, and I lost a lot of faith in myself as like a player. And so I thought I kind of wanted to take a break as well, I guess. And so I coached, and I think I coached for a couple of weeks, but then I was kind of in a weird spot with my life where I was moving around. I moved like state, and I was working a lot, and I just thought, nah, I don't really want to do anything. I kind of want to chill. I just want to like uh spend time, have my own time again, because I felt like even as an OCE team, then we scrimmed every night, I would work and then come home and then scrim and then go to work and whatnot. And then I think the second split, I I played the second split on a team, my own team. I've kind of formed my own team, and I think we came third at LAN or something. And I think Rowe at that time, Rowe was on a team with a cheetah, Richard Castle, Maxon, basically the team that went to Worlds. But I think they had another player. I think they had. I don't know if you know Sporks. I think it was him. I can't remember, but they had a roster. And Kiki, Kiki Omio, he was on my team, and then they poached Kiki after that LAN because he wanted to play with Richard. And so my team dissolved, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to coach us?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean I do love coaching. Like I don't uh like I enjoyed playing, but I love coaching like a lot more." And so I coached that Direwolves team, and we went to Worlds. And that was when basically after that I got the spot on Dig. So I would say 2 years, maybe two and a bit,
Yeah.
but
So
kind of like on
how
and
did
off.
you make the jump from the Direwolves to Dig? Like, what happened at Worlds
Uh,
that made Dig like, "Oh, Biggy, he's our guy." Like,
I mean, it wasn't really it was pretty much 100% Zyro's. Like I'm like forever grateful to him because I would not be here if it wasn't for him. I think I met him the first year I played at Worlds. I met I met him and he was on Fnatic, and we were kind of just good friends. And then uh, I think we didn't really keep in contact, but I mean I knew a lot of players. Like I met like Rafa. I became good mates with Rafa my first Worlds, and he kind of joked with me at times, like, "Yeah, you should coach us next year." And that was like the first time I played, but he was obviously just like joking. Like we got along well, but that was when I kind of thought, maybe I could, because I did want to. I kind of felt like Smite in OC was not where I wanted to be. I wanted to like be at the next level. So I kind of thought about it and then went home and had a year. And the next Worlds, Zara's coach Energy, and we spoke a lot about the game and we hung out a lot. And sat backstage with him during a bunch of the energy sets, like I think the quarters and the semifinals, and we just like gave ideas back and forth. And he was like, "Yeah, this is why we're doing this," and I'd be like, "Oh, what a this," and he'd be like, "Yeah, that could work, I guess maybe." Like, I don't think he never like took any of my input, but I just wanted to see if I could like intellectually like if my game knowledge was at that level, and I think
Yeah.
he kind of felt it. He kind of felt it was, and so I think we were drunk at the after party, and he was like talking to a few people, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get this team, and like you can coach us." And I was like, "All right, but don't just make me coach. Like I want to prove myself. Like let me trial." And so I kind of then I went home and I just annoyed him. I think for weeks. I was like, how's the team going? And I think he got Tricks and Fred together and Arkle, and I think the last one to join was Variety. And I'd just be like, "Yo," I did like a resume kind of thing, and I was like, "I'm just annoyed." I'm like, and he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna play in this tournament to qualify, and we're talking to Dig and stuff." And then I just trial and I just coached. I think for a week, and they were just down. Like they just signed when they signed with Dig, they signed me. Kind of just went from there.
Very cool. Right
But
place, right time, and then, the right connections.
yeah, but I
I
had to
like
prove
it.
myself. Like Tricks,
Yeah.
Tricks told me straight up. I think a few months later, he was like, "When you joined, because when I my first worlds, we scrim paradigm because it was like EU kind of politics and scrim. So they kind of got uh scrim locked a little bit, and so they were scrimming us like this just trash OCU team, and they were trolling us for sure and playing with like I think Lasro was like playing. I heard some games back in the day, and he was like a few months after I started coaching him, he was like, "Oh, I thought you were just some shit Australian. Like I did not respect you at all." And kind of I think Harry and Arkle very similar. Fred was a bit more like whatever, easygoing, but Zara's was the kind of one that backed me, and which was good to hear that. Like I didn't mind that because it kind of meant that I proved myself to them.
Yeah. Again, there is something to say. Like I kind of have a similar moment where like you're wondering if your game knowledge is there, right? Like you want to like
Yeah,
test yourself intellectually, and you finally like talk to someone, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea," and you're like, I did it, mom, I'm here, I made it."
yeah,
Like, and it's like you finally get that self assurance, right? Like, I think mine came from, I think it was the NRG Invitational. I was sitting around talking to somebody, and
uh,
I was just like able to carry a conversation for like the first time about strategy and comps and like ideas and like what you would do in a game. And I was like, I think I was like talking to Aurora and stuff. And I was like, if I can talk to Aurora about this and like hold my ground, like that's a good point to be at. I'm good with this. It was
yeah.
like a lot of fun. So you get on the team. How did like the meshing of that squad go? Because that was a big like kind of narrative at the beginning of Diggs' run, was like there's a lot of good players, but how would they kind of interact with each other? And I feel like that was, I wouldn't say sorry.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that that was like a prolonged narrative throughout Diggs' run, but there was definitely like
yeah.
you guys were an emotional team was definitely something that kind of followed you the entire way. And was any of that kind
I,
of tied with like the player meshings?
uh, I don't think we failed to mesh as like personally. Like those obviously s- changes. Like it was announced that we're making changes, but those were honestly the best 2 years of my life. Like and I think those guys would probably agree. Like that was the most fun team. Obviously I love the Direwolves team. Like they're all my best mates, but like this team as well was it was kind of it was so perfect for me because I went from that, which was like I'm never gonna find a team like this. Like these are the 5 people that I would want to coach in like the Direwolves team, and I love every one of them, and we get along, and like we all go out and have fun together. And then went to Dig, and it's like the same thing. It was like But in game was definitely different. Like we've got a lot of, I don't know, stories. I guess I think it was just a few different personalities uh, didn't mesh pretty much from the get go. But also, I think Fred was a bit wild when I first joined that team. Like, and Arco was a bit, as you know, they like to party, so uh, trying trying to get them to show up consistently on time and perform in scrims was a bit of an effort. And then uh, I don't know, attitude a bit, effort a bit. I think our first boot camp we boot camped in Germany, and it was the worst experience of my life. Like people, like I don't, people just showing up like a minute before we scrim. We scrim blocks at like 4 p.m. or something, and people like showing up late. People not talking in scrims, not saying a word. Fred's banging his desk or something. Zaros is yelling at people for not talking, and I'm just sitting there like I think we had 1 day of scrims, and I literally said like I'm gonna shot call. I was on the comms and I was like, please just play and just listen to me, and I'm gonna shot call them up. And we that was like the day we did well. I think we won like 5 out of 6 or something. But I think every other day we lost like every scrim. We scrimmed at Bay a lot and just got stomped. Pretty sure we scrimmed energy as well, majority, and it was like I don't know, it was terrible. I think I flew to Germany from Australia, and then like a week later I flew home because we wanted to keep scrimming. Uh, and then I think a week later I flew to America and then flew back after like a few days. And I mean we
Oof.
lost the land by like 1 game, but I mean after that I don't know. I think 1 point during the boot camp I looked over.
So Biggie was saying he had a terrible experience flying around all over the place, and at scrims he looked over. What did you see? What did you see,
Oh,
Biggie?
I looked over at one stage during boot camp, and Zaros he was booking a flight home, and I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm going back to Sweden. I can't do it anymore." And I was like, "Holy shit!" And I guess that was like that kind of like summed up our team. I think like we went through a lot together, but we had like, but I mean, I wouldn't take it back. Like it was so much fun. I think those kind of things is uh kind of what was like that would like sum up that team for me is like just
Looking over and
crazy.
seeing Zeros booking a
Uh,
flight. That's
yeah.
I can't get over that. It's like
Uh,
the most troll
but
ass shit. Like
yeah
that's
the
amazing.
the thing with that is though is like that's what we were like is we would go from that and then that night we'd be like we'd be like all right, let's just go out. And I think then it would go like everyone it was just like nothing happened, you know. And we'd kick on, and I think that was the same night Cyrus missed his flight or something. Like, yeah, ironically, he ended up missing his flight back to Sweden. So,
So that sounds good, like a really good team environment though. Like you guys would get really emotional in the moment, but you guys could always come back around and recenter and be like, okay, we're all good, we're all friends here, we're all on the same page. And I feel like that's
I don't know.
kind of is that not the case?
I mean, we would, but I mean, it's not a good team environment. Like, it was pretty consistent like that,
Yeah,
especially the first year. Not so much this last year. It's actually pretty good this last year. I think Fred stepped up a lot this year, whereas last year he was a bit more troublesome. Arkle as well, especially during the world split, kind of stepped up. Harry too, like coming to Denmark, he was a lot better. But I mean, that's kind of just also a little bit of a standard in Smite, I think. That a lot of people probably don't see is there's a lot of emotions and kind of
a lot of butting heads behind the
uh,
scenes.
yeah. Well, it's not even the butting heads. I think it's just people getting frustrated and dealing with it different ways, and that's just kind of what you have to deal with, I guess. What I
How do
learned.
you think that's gonna go moving forward with like team houses now? Like that's
I think that was one thing that surprised me was uh that they kind of didn't put more funding or backing into kind of coaching from Hi-Rez. I feel like now more than ever, you need someone that isn't a player. Like, obviously, if you're like a Splice or something, you have someone like a Raw who just has a lot of control, but you also have Kabam as well. But I think you need to have someone who is just kind of like the middleman between the team and the management, and just someone that can control the team because I don't know. Like, I think like a lot of those players are probably moving out of home for the first time as well. Uh, so not gonna know how to do most things that their mum probably does for them. Uh, so I was kind of surprised that there wasn't like a default base salary for like a sixth person. But it will be interesting. I feel like I have a lot of control over my team, and I won't put up with any shit really. And now more than ever, it's like if you're not going to treat it professionally, then you're going to get replaced. Like
Yeah.
that's just how it is, from my point of view. And like Dig, that's the standard. That's my standards, and that's Dig standards. And I feel like that should be any player standards as well.
Yeah, I mean, going back to like what we were talking about a little bit earlier is like that next step that Smite wants to take, but like hasn't been able to. Like this is moving in the right direction, but you look at like what we're trying to emulate. Overwatch, trying to emulate League of Legends, stuff
Yeah,
like that. You look at a League of Legends team house. They've got a chef, they've got a nutritionist, they've got a physical trainer, they've got all of the support staff that makes it work and makes it run on top of the coach. Then you got analysts. Like it's a whole thing,
yeah,
right? And like I don't it's a great idea to start moving in that direction, but we've got orgs that aren't paying their players on time. There's no way
yeah,
orgs are going to like immediately opt in for all of this to support a team, right? I think the biggest chances we really have, I mean, Dignitas coming back and like they're going to treat it the right way. I mean, obviously you're being brought back in and supported.
yeah,
Splice, they're bringing Kabam back in to support, and I think those are two teams that might go the extra mile and start like putting stuff together to like help their teams have the most success and stuff like that. Like we're transitioning the period of Smite where you have to have a coach. Like that is just hands down. You have to have a coach if you want to win worlds. It's just something I feel like it needs to happen to play at the highest level, right? At
yeah,
what point? At what point is a team like going to be like, okay, we're going to be the first team to have analysts now, and that's going to be our competitive edge? Like there's so many little steps that you can see in the future, but it's just like who's going to take them and what changes are they ultimately going to have in the scene? A lot of question marks surrounding all of this, like moving and this growth and maturation period.
yeah. Uh, the thing with Smite as well is uh, I don't know if there's enough names like or out and out coaches. I think we lost Hazer with the move, which is like a massive one in my opinion. And hopefully there's some more that crop up. I know I've talked to a few people, but then again, if you're a new name and you're coming into a team, like how much respect are you gonna garner? And it's also uh, a bigger risk to pick up a coach as well, because if you're gonna move someone into a house with you, then I mean they're kind of stuck, and if so, it's probably more a bigger temptation to just for a lot of teams to go with like kind of like a semi kind of coach slash sub or just a sixth person that you've known for a while. But
Yeah.
hopefully, some like true kind of out and out coaches find their way into the scene this year.
I think it'll be interesting to see who kind of transitions into those roles because like there's so much uncertainty when you move into that role. Like, obviously, you got into a good spot. Alpha Jackal got into a good spot. Kabam, like all these guys got into good spots where they were supported by orgs, right? But that's not every org moving forward, and it'll be interesting to see where that goes from here.
Yeah.
Who's gonna risk it, right? Or are we gonna see people who are already around the area, right? Like I was talking to Weekend, and he was like, "Yeah, going into season 5, I thought I was gonna transition into a coach." And then season 6, he's like, "Nah, I'm not gonna coach. I'm not doing that." And I'm like, "What changed?" Like there's
Yeah.
like definitely that mindset of like where I feel like some players, it's like some players who would make good coaches will never make that transition just because of like, well, I don't want to be a coach. That's not me.
Yeah,
That's not what I would do.
could be, like an bit of an ego thing, but
Hmm.
if you talk to anyone, there's a lot of like highly respected coaches in the region. I mean, like in both regions, and they make a lot of like difference to the teams that they coach. So uh, I just think also there's not as much support. Like if you're a player, if you're a good player, if you're at that level to coach and you have the reputation, then you're probably good enough to play as well. And so you would probably just commit to playing because you're probably going to make a higher salary.
Yeah. You look
So I
at
think
like Hythe. Hythe was like a decent player, could more than
yeah,
likely be on an SML team, got the coaching job, and now is looking to go back to being a player because it's like, well, like I learned a lot coaching, and it was a good experience, but like ultimately I want to play because I feel like I'm good enough to play. So there's definitely that aspect of it as well.
I mean, I think also just opportunity will dictate probably some coaches. If someone doesn't get picked up, then you're obviously gonna and you they want to stay involved, and they'll probably try to get into coaching.
It's an interesting moving forward. But back to you. Uh we keep going towards the future and everything.
Uh,
Now that Dig is seeing a bunch of changes, you guys just announced that Arkle and Zyros are both leaving the squad. Um
uh,
we're gonna see some big changes moving forward. So we'll see how that develops. But what what were some of your we kind of got some behind the scenes stuff from you already, but what was probably your favorite moment of this dig team that over the last couple years?
uh, I mean, obviously winning Valencia was a highlight, but I think the way we finished at Worlds, uh, like we lost 3-0, but I don't feel like we choked. I just feel like we got beaten by a better team. They had good drafts that counted our picks. They had good picks, like that counted our carries, and they played like I feel like especially Divios and Sino, they just played like they had the lands of their life, and they deserve to win. They deserve to be world champs. But the thing for me as a coach was that there was like I think we had a rough game against SSG, and then we lost game 2 against SSG, and we lost 3-0 to Splice. But there was like I think everyone kind of had each other's back, and that was kind of the first time I've seen that at LAN. A lot of the time when we'd been losing at LAN, like maybe people get a bit niggly at each other, and kind of some tensions rise, and it gets and people maybe a bit aggressive at each other. But for me, it's like everything was calm, collected. Like the comms, from what I could hear from behind, were clean. No one ever like had a go at each other or anything. And for me as a coach, like I feel like, especially now that we made changes, that was like a good. Obviously, we would have loved to win, but it was just nice to see, for them to have each other's back.
It's good to hear. It's kind of ironic that everything
Yeah,
comes together at the last land, and then the team's breaking
oh,
apart. So it's like uh Why couldn't we have done this
Yeah.
sooner?
I think there was still issues, and I feel like our biggest strength is always our biggest weakness in that we had so much individual talent in every role that I feel like that was also our downfall. I feel like we could at times be a great team, but I don't think consistently enough to uh, maybe win a land like win a major land like that where I think feel like we became a bit predictable, and we knew it at the start of the year. We knew we needed to change things, and we needed to uh, make sure we were practicing properly. But then, as much as we tried, I just don't think we could break a lot of the habits we had, and I feel like that was kind of all of it going to be our downfall. And we spoke about it, and uh, I think when we finished Worlds and we left Worlds, I feel like we were all under the impression that we would stay together and try again. But then I just think when we sat down and like spoke about it and thought about it a lot more, it's kind of my opinion that if one of us was gonna win Worlds, one of us six, it was just not gonna be like together, you know. I feel like myself, I feel like I have the skill. I feel like every one of them definitely has the skill, like to win Worlds and deserve to. But I just don't think together we would ever. I feel like we would always get figured out, or we would always fall short for the same kind of reason or a similar reason. And I feel like pretty much everyone agreed with me, and that's why we had made changes basically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you look at Splice, like there's talent on that roster for sure. But would
Yeah,
you say that they had top tier talent in every role? Maybe not, right? Like
I mean,
they played as a team.
definitely.
I think that was their key, right? They played the best team smite of any other team.
Yeah,
Like nobody else could play as a group as well as they did.
yeah,
And that's what you kind of
that's
need as a team moving forward.
yeah. And I think just some of our like idiosyncrasies or habits, I just felt like held us back. Like we tried a lot of things. We tried to practice differently. We tried to be more flexible in our drafting and in our scrimming, and we changed what we took from scrims and when we played certain things. And we definitely tried. Like it's not like we just like we knew we had a lot of skill, and we knew that the first year especially we pretty much purely relied on that. And we had good drafts, but we definitely I feel like maybe got away with a few things in Valencia in drafting that we probably shouldn't have. Um, but, like we knew our weaknesses and we knew our strengths, but we just I feel like making changes was the right thing as much as it sucks. Like it hurts a lot to like not to know that I won't like be living with those guys because I do love them a lot and it does suck to make change. But I feel like I spoke especially like to Zaras and I said I just feel like it's the right thing to do for you, for like us and for you guys individually.
Mhm.
And they're both. I mean, they haven't made any announcements yet, but they're both looking, you know, in a good spot, which is good as well for next year.
Good. Happy to hear it. I gotta ask because talking to Kabam after Worlds, he kind of let the floodgates open on kind of some like strategies that they had that they never really used and everything. And since we're going into a new season and everything kind of can get thrown out the window, what were
Yeah.
some of the craziest ideas you had that you felt worked but never kind of saw the light of day? Like Kabam said, they had a Kabrak and Loki duo lane lined up that they never pulled out.
Uh, we don't really see. That's the thing. I feel like that was maybe like something that held us back, because I don't feel like we weren't willing to take that kind of risk. I don't think we would ever take that risk, even in practice. I feel like we were very happy to just find the way we wanted to play the game and what the lane we wanted to focus around, and then prioritize our picks around that and kind of find our top comfort picks and then just draft what felt right, what looked right into what they were gonna pick, and we never like I don't uh think we had anything that we didn't play. It's hard to think now. I can't remember like what exactly we played, but
It's been so long. It's
yeah, it's been a
almost
while.
2
It's
months
already
ago
been
at
a
this
while.
point, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
I guess not 2
I mean,
months, it's been a month.
that's the other
It's
thing.
crazy.
Yeah, we just stuck to our guns at Worlds, and like that was the other thing. I mean, it's easy to look back in hindsight and be like, oh, we could have banned this, we should have banned this. Like, but would it have made a difference? Probably not. Maybe we win one game, but also like you have to look at. I think it's like Splice. Like, if we don't try and end game two, we'd probably win that game. You know. So there's a lot of things you can always look back and be like, oh, maybe if we won game two, if we didn't try and end off that FG, and then we could have turned the series or something. But I mean, it's not really fair on anyone to do that. Obviously, I was quite like happy we stuck with what we wanted to do. We just weren't good enough, you know. They were better, so that's just how it is. But no, we didn't. I don't think we had uh, anything that that crazy lined up.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of like the staple with NA is just trying super crazy stuff, whereas I don't know. I feel like there were points with EU that we get like obviously Cheerio squad throughout the year had some insane comps that were weird, to say the least. But at one point we were
uh,
seeing like Circuits being picked up support to start the year, things like that. Like there's definitely been like some experimentation phases in EU, but I think like what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Where largely it's just like no, we play it, I, and it's different because there's a difference between like traditional Smite because you look at like SSG, the Jeff and Barrett teams, right? They
yeah,
play a lot of really stale, like cookie cutter white bread picks and comps, right? Like that traditional Smite. Like I don't think like
yeah,
EU kind of falls into that. Like it's different. You guys play traditional Smite, but not like the bad traditional Smite. I feel like I don't know. There's a better way to word that, but I can't really think of it. And so you guys kind of get
I
in
think.
your own space and your lane, and you're like, we like this. This works really well. We're gonna stay with this.
Uh, I think it's definitely experimentation, but I feel like a lot of EU teams have their styles. You know, like Obey had their style. We had like I think we had a pretty boring style, but it was what we liked to play, and it worked for us the majority of the time. You know, especially like online, we had a lot of success online. But like Mouse, obviously, like playing Warriors mid, and I don't know, like whatever Dardes was doing and split, like playing like hunters and stuff. It's definitely, I think, a lot more like unique team playstyles in EU. But I mean, I think that will make things exciting for next year to see like what kind of combinations come up roster wise. I feel like uh, could have a like a major effect on the meta as well at the end of the day.
Would you say like out of all the stuff going into season 6, that's what you're kind of most excited for? Is all the different rosters that we could be possibly seeing and like differences in like styles and that'll have an impact on?
Well, and the thing is, like, I know most of the rosters behind the scenes, and there's definitely some like spicy ones cooking up, and a lot of changes. Uh, but it's definitely I think the cross regions teams will be the most like interesting to follow uh, next year. I think it's just overall it's just changed. Like I'm very much as like is follow like a lot of like football and cricket and stuff, and I don't know, just like roster changes is exciting, you know. A new
Oh yeah,
player, or
absolutely.
like the potential for a new player to be playing with like a certain other player, or that you never expected, or it's just exciting to me as like a traditional sports fan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have that like you look at Obey, Nate and Twig are gonna be on different teams, and it's like it's
Yeah,
weird. crazy. I don't know, like we can announce the SSG stuff, so like people are like, what is
Uh,
you know, is
I
is it
think that
gonna
was
be Jeff
just a troll.
Barra and I mean more than likely, yeah, but
Uh,
it'd be hilarious. I would love it. I would
uh,
absolutely love it if they got rid of Andy to replace them with Weekend. That'd be great. But all right, so we're coming up on about an hour here, so we're gonna start winding it down. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to touch on that we haven't gotten to yet?
I don't know. I don't know if you have anything. I think we've pretty much like gone over everything.
Yeah. All right, I think. All
Well,
right, so go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm pretty sure we should be announcing our roster fairly soon, like publicly. So
Ooh, awesome!
that's
Can't
something to look
wait.
forward to. Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm
Uh,
excited.
that's about it. Yeah.
All right, so one thing I do want to talk about is you have been. I don't know. I want to say a fan of the show, but I don't know that fan is like fan sounds like an aggressive word, like too much. But I
I'm
think
a fan. I'm a fan.
yeah, you were at my first show, my first ever show, weren't you? You tuned in. I think it was like me
I
and I interviewed Nika, and I think it was you showed up, Variety showed up,
think so.
a bunch of people.
I think Variety and I are very similar. As like, well, I know I personally, I think, I think, kind of pros interacting with the public and behind the scenes stuff becomes public. I feel like it it improves. I think it improves like the kind of like me telling a story about like boot camp is. We were one game off winning that land, right? So no one would ever expect that we had a terrible boot camp and people were like threatening to go home and stuff. Like that's just funny, and that makes you love like those kind of players more. Like that was one thing I loved about Cyrus is like he is so much fun like as a person to be in a team with, and I feel like it also is maybe why the scene is a little bit stale at times is because you watch them play SPL, and a lot of Smite pros are very like keep to themselves. Not a lot of them stream unless they're forced to. Not a lot of them tweet. So this kind of like uh, it's like drama, but it's not drama, but it's just like it's just a storyline. It's something to follow. It's interesting, and I feel like that was the way it was in OCE was everything was very public and like OCE always had like podcasts and was always you're very always interacting with like casual players, and like I think I knew like pretty much every casual player that played the game in OCU, like I knew their name or like I recognized their name. You always see people you recognize, and I think that's what I came from. And Harry enjoys that as well. Like he loves the kind of I don't know that kind of content. And yeah, I can't remember, but I remember being a fan like before you started. I think before you did I think it was an internship at Hi-Rez. Like I remember watching
Yeah.
with I forgot his name, but used to do a
Oh,
show with
I did
him,
it.
and I used to.
Freight Train and Gormizer were the right two
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
that did
yeah,
the.
freight. Yeah, yeah, I remember that. I remember always like initially, I didn't know much about Gormizer, but I really enjoyed like your like back and forth with Freight Train. I really enjoyed that. So that's quite like a shit moment when that ended, sadly. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think it was way back
everything.
then.
Yeah, that was it was weird because like behind the scenes, like Freight Train was an interesting guy to work with because like we would butt heads, but like I love the guy, but he was just like he
uh,
was dumb sometimes.
uh,
And just like trying to like he's like, all right, I was like, hey, did you watch any of the games? He's like, nah, I'll just look at the Reddit to see what the final scores were. Like, what are you doing?
I
Uh,
think that's I remember. I actually just remembered. Yeah, I don't know if I used to because I'm pretty sure you could download your podcast, right? You did like the recap. the SPL recap or something, or SPL
Yeah.
Weekly something. When I used to like work out or like jog, I would like download, I'd listen to it like when I was running, and like that's what I
Oh.
remember. I just had like a weird like flashback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're trying to get everything set up for this to kind of be released as a podcast. Uh,
yeah,
because I know like there's a lot of people who like to listen to stuff on the go and things like that. I'm one of them, so we're gonna try to move
yeah,
towards like getting this out or released in that form. And
yeah,
I don't know,
definitely.
it was just crazy because I think I've been trying to organize this interview for a year and a
Uh,
half, and like we never like were able to sit down. And it's just crazy that like it's finally happened. We finally got it.
well, I mean, I like a lot of stuff, but I'm also like very private. Like I
Mhm.
kind of just keep to myself or do my own thing. I don't like having limelight or like being really in the public eye. I kind of just enjoy coaching and doing that. But I feel I feel like I owed it to you as well. I feel like I'd
Yeah.
stuffed you around a bit like when I was traveling.
I
So
feel like a lot of it too. I feel like that makes a lot of sense because I feel like a lot of players, not players, I guess a lot of fans of the SPL won't really know who you are, right? Like you've
yeah,
been a top tier coach for a while, and they might know the name Biggie, but I don't think any of them could like if you were lined up with like four other
yeah,
people, like that's Biggie, like
uh,
right. So it's I think it's
uh,
good. I want to see you get more exposure just because I do think you're a phenomenal coach. I think the work that you did do with Dignitas was pretty amazing. I really truly am excited to see what you kind of do moving forward and knowing how much like sway you have with roster decisions and like with the team and everything like that. I'm really excited to see what you guys do. I do have I guess like
yeah.
one last question we haven't really talked about uh, when as a coach, how did you approach like pick bands as a team? So I know like some teams with the coaches run pick bands. Other teams, it's like a whole team thing where everybody's kind of giving input. And sometimes like there are some coaches that don't do pick bands at all, which doesn't make any sense to me. But
Uh,
what was kind of like your guys' style there? Was it a group effort or was it more like you kind of leading the way?
it depends. It changed because similar to like when I tried to implement like an in-game leader in the team, kind of changed from time to time. Like, and we never. I think another thing we never really found consistently, pure like real consistency with that. Majority, I would say it was just Zaros and myself, and then uh, kind of a bit of discussion, and then a lot of time like myself or Zaros, or we would have say, or we would come to an agreement. Generally, we never really had any problems uh, when it came to drafting like issues or like I I want this, and then which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but that's just how it worked for us. Like because I think we tried times where I had like pure control, and it was just like it was impossible in practice because you play one thing and you'd be like, I'd be like, okay, look this, and someone would be like, no, I don't want to play that. I want to play this. Or like Harry's like, I want to play Poseidon. I was like, okay, like whatever, dude. Just I don't know. So it's hard to like get that kind of practice, but a lot when it came to competition, I would say I would I would get like before lands or before SPL is I would come out with like our priority picks, their priority picks, what I thought we should ban, and I would go in and be like, this is all the information I have from like watching their games. This is how they play. This is how they draft. Like this is when they pick certain things. This is my opinion, like from first pick, and my opinion from second pick, and then I'd be like, all right, go, give me your opinions. And if they could kind of sway me, or we could sway each other, or like come to an agreement, then that's what we generally went with. Uh, and then on stage, it was kind of if it got to a point where was picking for them, it was a bit of like I would always give the faith to the player, like if Zaros wanted a pick, and if I felt like I'd be like, oh, I think this is good here, and he'd be like, oh no, I could probably play this, and I'd be like, and he'd be like, oh, I don't know, and I'd be like, okay, I trust you, like you're gonna play the pick. We trust you as a team. Pick what you want here, and like so he would go with a certain pick. Uh, so I don't know. It works different ways, but we kind of always went in with a game plan, and everyone kind of knew the game plan, and then it just came down to probably the individual player a lot of the time. If there was
Right.
ever like not like a disagreement, but if there was ever like multiple picks that looked good, then it would just come down to the player's comfort, really.
All right. That sounds like I feel like a standard. Like that's like I feel like a lot of teams will usually have one or two people kind of leading the
Yeah,
way, and then it kind of comes down to like individual players being like, "Well, I know you want me to play this, but I think I'd feel comfortable on this." All right. Well, if that's what you're gonna feel comfortable on, we'll get that for you. So makes a lot of sense. I think that's about time. Thanks for coming on the show. Loved having you finally. I'll see
yeah.
you again in about a year and a half when we get you on for part
Ah,
two.
maybe maybe
So
you can.
before I let you go, uh, this is the point where I give you my soapbox to stand on. Any shout outs you want to give, anything you want to say to send us out with, the floor is yours.
I don't know. Not really. I'd say just to dig. Honestly, they're really good to us, and they have a lot of faith in myself and us as like a team, and they're doing a lot for us. I mean, they always have, but they're doing a lot for us now, especially with the move and everything. So, and other than that, uh, the roster should be announced soon. So we might be one of the first announcing. So I think it should keep away a bit of the boredom for like even the spectators during the off season.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see what you guys put together. I'm excited to see the
Yeah.
announcement. So
Uh,
again, thanks for joining me, Biggie. Thanks for watching, everybody. That's it for this week. We're kind of flying by the seat of our pants here every week, trying to get an interview together, waiting for big news to drop. And there's just not really anything big enough to warrant a whole show yet. Maybe once Biggie and Dignitas release their roster, we'll have a show to talk about, the roster and implications for moving there. But I don't know. We'll probably stick to interviews. Next week's Christmas. So I will be traveling starting Monday. So unless I can record another interview after Biggie today, uh, next week's gonna be a difficult one to get a show out for. So I don't know how we're gonna tackle that, but I'll let you guys know on Twitter. As you can see, you can follow Biggie at Biggie underscore KOL, Biggie Cole.
yes. Yes, that is me.
I always thought it was Biggie Coy for the longest time.
Oh,
All right, so Biggie Cole. And then
cool.
as always, you follow me at the Zach Dick. All right, goodbye, everybody. Say goodbye, Biggie.
All right. See ya.